Hello guys, US Minuteman here. I want to do a video on knives. In this video I wanted to talk about carrying knives, knives for self-defense out in the world and also in your own home. I want to go over in this video different types of knives such as folding knives, fixed blade knives, butterfly knives, that type of thing, and hopefully give you some advice on what you need to pick or choose for your knife and what would work for your lifestyle. And keep in mind that look in your own laws, your own state laws, before you take any of my advice. This is not legal advice. This is my opinion, and this will depend on where your location is. Like me, for example, I'm in Oregon, so I will be abiding by my state laws. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so we got a few groups of knives here that we're going to be talking about just real quick. We've got folding knives over here. We got fixed blade knives when they're sheaths. And we also got kind of specialty knives, thinner knives, butterfly knife, Leatherman, that type of thing. So these are the kind of groups that we're going to be talking about at first. And to start off, I figure we'll just go with folding knives since that's what most people carry. So we'll get started on that. Ta-da! Alright, so here we got the folding knives. Typically when you think about a folding knife, the blade folds into the handle, so it makes it easy to carry, also safer to carry because the blade is within the handle, therefore not being able to cut anything. I mentioned this knife in my basics to carry video, my United Edge, which is the one I really like. As I said before, it has the seatbelt cutter and the glass breaker. This is just a standard folding. You flip it up, open with your thumb, or you open it with two hands. No assistance whatsoever in opening it, so it's your own power that opens it. It's nice because it's light enough that I can flick it open, so it's pretty quick as far as folding knives go, which is pretty nice. So. And on a side note, there are some knives that have multiple blades in them, and could be useful. Usually different size blades, different shape blades, so we will get into those. And then next we have a assisted flip open folding knife. These are spring assisted, so when you push usually a little button on the end, or if you flip it open with your thumb, a spring flips it open quick. Just makes it a little bit easier to open. That's generally the purpose of those. So other than that, they're exactly the same as any other folding knife. So now, typically when people are going to carry our folding knives, because they're very convenient to carry, they are half the size of the same knife in a fixed blade, because you can fold them in half. Now, what I would recommend when you're looking at a folding knife, you got to look for quality, because already a folding knife is not as durable as a fixed blade because they have joints. They have the joint that connects the handle to the blade. So already it's weaker here than fixed blades, because a fixed blade is just one long metal piece. So always look for quality knives. You look at this knife. This is all plastic. If I were ever doing any serious work with this, I would probably break the handle with this. And I can tell that the steel is not up to par as far as good quality stainless steel or even carbon steel. So I would definitely not get this. These are all knives that I've just collected throughout the years. So definitely look at the knife. Make sure it's quality. Definitely go for brands as well. Gerber is definitely a good one. Like this one right here. It's a Gerber knife. I know Gerber is very well trusted in quality knives. So that's definitely something I recommend. This particular knife has like a skeletonized style handle here, and what that'll do is it'll actually lighten the knife. This knife is actually very light, but very strong because it's all metal, and the way the shape, the handle, the skeleton handle, makes it pretty strong. But it's still very, very, very light. So that's always a plus. Now, going back to these three-bladed knives here. So you got this one here, got another one, and I also got this Swiss Army knife, which I really like. Now, these knives, in my opinion, and a lot of people who know a lot about knives would probably tell you the same thing. These are tools. These are not particularly well suited for self-defense. And the reason for them is unfolding them takes a little bit longer than some of these regular folding knives. Not only that, every single one of these, when they're all the way out, has no locking mechanism for the blade. So just pushing the blade backwards is what closes it. Whereas this folding knife has a lock that you have to unlock. And most folding knives are that way. But if I were to try to defend myself with this knife, and I did a stabbing motion, and it caught something, it could close on my fingers, therefore hurting myself, and effectively giving the person who is attacking me an advantage. So, in my opinion, these are not a defensive tool. This is a tool for opening boxes, whittling, whatever it is you do with these. That type of deal. So as far as folding knives go, typically that's what it is. On a side note also, I happen to have found this knife here, which opens very differently than any other knife that I've ever owned. It's got a little locking mechanism here. You push forward and you flip the knife sideways. It's very interesting. Just thought I'd share that. I've never actually seen it in any other knife before. If you have, please let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely check it out. But it's definitely not something you see all the time. So it's definitely very interesting. So yeah, definitely pros for folders is the concealability of the knife. The durability is not so great, so when you're getting a folding knife, definitely get a quality knife. It's definitely going to be better in the long run, especially if it's a defensive weapon. Next we will talk about fixed blades. And the fixed blades, for those of you who do not know, do not fold up into the handle. The handle is straight along with the blade, and the blade is usually kept inside a sheath. So we will get to that right now. Alright, so here we got fixed blade knives. So fixed blades, like it may suggest in the title of the name, it's just a fixed blade and tang. Now, to go over parts of a knife, you got the blade, the tang, which is a metal part that connects the blade inside the handle, so it makes it one rigid piece. You have the kind of the hand guard here, the handle, and the pommel. The pommel usually holds the handle onto the tang, but sometimes they could have multiple purposes, like a hammer in this particular case. So fixed blades, in my opinion, are superior to folding in a tactical way. They're more sturdy, they're easier to draw from a sheath, just as much as a gun would be from a holster, as opposed to pulling it out of your pocket. Same deal. So to promote Gerber again, and they are not paying me, by the way. You know, I should be getting paid. So this knife is a good knife in my opinion. It's the Bear Grylls survival knife. You know, pretty hefty, pretty good balance. In my opinion, it just feels good in my hands. So if I ever had to use it, it appeals to me very well. This particular knife, being a survival knife, has a little fire starter. So a little bit of a multi-tool in this knife to start fires if I'm ever out in the wilderness. So yeah, it's definitely a good knife in my opinion. So, and when you're talking about fixed blades, they all have sheaths. The sheath is just what the blade goes in. Typically the sheath will have a belt loop that will connect to your belt, so you put it on your belt. Some will have little clips, like this one. Don't know if you can see that. But you can just put that over your pants, you don't have to have a belt. So, you know, just a little bit of ways to do it. This one, for example, also has a little band. Now this is kind of a tactical little knife that I don't remember where I got it from. But it goes over your shoulder, so you have a little knife strapped to your chest or your back. So another style of carry there. And then this one, this is a diving knife. If you can see these, this has little slots that you put these rubber bands through, and you strap it to your arm or your leg, you know, for a diver, and it mounts on your limbs that way. So another point of carry. So as I have said before, the durability of a fixed blade goes up compared to a folding blade. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that all fixed blades are good, because when you look at the durability, a big thing is, does the tang go all the way through the handle? Now this knife it's a big knife, big intimidating knife, made by Jeep. I don't know when they started making knives, but apparently they do. It's very big, very intimidating, very big knife. But the handle unscrews, and as you can see, the tang is barely in the handle at all. So what, maybe an inch, inch and a half? Now that, if you were ever ranking on it as a hefty tool, or if you were ever in a really big fight, that could break, and then you have no handle. You know, it's just bad news. So if you're getting fixed blades, make sure the tang goes all the way through. It's definitely better quality that way. Now the reason for this particular one is it has little matches and fishing hook. You know, it's a little survival kit knife. So, but it's not a quality knife. I would not call it a quality knife. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at fixed blades. So opposite of that is this one. Now this one's also very intimidating looking, but as you can tell, it's pretty much almost all metal. You look at the metal, and the tang goes all the way through and out the back. So it's one big solid piece of steel basically, with little wood handles just to grab onto to make it a little bit more comfortable. Now this particular knife, this is not going to be practical. It's going to get a lot of looks from people if you're carrying this. This is a knife, if you want a knife, a big knife like this, have it by your bedside, you know, in your bedroom. If you're using it for a self-defense purpose, don't go carrying this around, because you're going to get looks. If you have this on your hip, they're going to be like, what's this crazy person doing with this weird, sick-looking knife? It looks like they're going to go, you know, kill a lot of people. Just a thought there. But definitely look for the tangs. That's always good. Just like on this one as well. And I'll compare these two here. So this is all the way metal as well, just with a little nylon wrapping, just to make it a little bit more comfortable to hold. But Typically when you look at knives, the tang is going to go all the way through, but these are just kind of, the handles are very bare minimum. So, just a style of knife, either way. So when we're talking about knives in the sheath, they have retention systems. So just like a firearm, you have some form of retention to keep the knife in there. Now, typically, what you're going to find is a little button snap. Don't know if you can see that, but it's a little button that just wraps around the handle that keeps the knife in there. You just thumb it open to pull it out. That's typically what you're going to find with most sheaths. Just like this one has a little Velcro instead of a button, but same principle, same thing. Some are a little different. As we go back to this Gerber one, its retention is just kind of a little bit of friction, a little bit of squeezing here, so it just comes right off. But when you put it in, it snaps. So as you can see, it squeezes the handguard right there. So just another form of retention there. Another one, which you're probably not going to find too often. Now this particular one is a decorative knife. It's not a practical knife. It's probably not even very good quality. So definitely keep that in mind. But this particular knife, its retention, is a little clip on the inside that you push this little button, this little ruby button here. You push it, and it comes out. And as you can see, a little tab there pushes down when you push it. So, another form of retention for that knife. Another one, this is a diving knife. As I said before, this one comes with a little trigger style retention. This little black piece goes through the knife handle and then clamps onto it. You can see the little hole in there. It just goes right through it and catches. And so when you pull it out, you're just using your front finger to pull it out. So when you're talking fixed blades, typically each one is going to have a purpose. This one, being a diving knife, it's suited for the water. Its materials are going to be water resistant, plastic handle. The blade is definitely going to be stainless or chromed, and it's also got a little hook here. You can see that. It acts just like the previous folding knife that we saw that cuts seatbelts, but it'll be typically for line or netting or anything that maybe a diver would get caught in. So it's kind of a safety feature there, so gotta watch out for those nets underwater. Now this particular knife set, I would not consider it a defensive option at all, because it's kind of a nice set, but it's specifically designed for field dressing. Now field dressing, for those of you who may not know, is taking apart a game kill, a deer, an elk, whatever you hunt. So it's got just designed for that. Now it's just a typical fillet knife here, and this particular blade right here, which is very unique, it's got a round, almost butter knife shape. Now the reason for that is when you're skinning a deer or whatever it is you may be skinning, you don't want to poke any of its organs because they smell really bad. So when you're skinning, this is going to poke less. So just a little side note on this nice set of knives here. So definitely when I recommend a fighting knife, I would recommend a fixed blade. Definitely go simple, and practical. Something like this knife here, this survival knife here, was something I definitely would do. Obviously not this Jeep knife because of the handle problem that we discussed. It's just not good. It's also really big. When you think about a self-defense knife, you gotta wield this thing. You gotta, you gotta carry it, and bigger knives are not easy carried. Not very practical. In the home, sometimes they can work, depending on your situation. They can be very intimidating, so that could also be a good factor. If you have an intimidating knife, maybe the person who has harmful intentions towards you may think twice. I want to do a quick side notice also on this particular knife. It's also kind of a decorative knife. It's stainless. It feels okay, but you notice there's a little slit in the blade here. It's going to lighten it. I also feel like that would also weaken it as well. Maybe not a lot, but it definitely lightens it. And it also has these little hooks. Now, that may look intimidating, but when you're trying to draw it from a sheath or from anything, it can get caught. You don't want you try and pull your knife out and to get caught on a belt or something, and then, it could give you a big disadvantage in a self-defensive situation, so keep that in mind. So, I think that is everything I wanted to say about fixed blade knives. Next we will talk about special knives, such as butterfly knives, throwing knives, and I even got a Leatherman tool that we'll talk about. So, alright guys, so I got a few special knives here. And before I get started, I wanted to talk about safety really quick, because as I was getting set up, one of my camera guys here decided to flip up a knife and almost stabbed himself in the foot. So I talk about safety with guns. I might as well talk about safety with knives. Be careful with a knife. They're sharp. They're pointy. Don't stab yourself in the foot. Just thought I'd say that. Alright. So what we got here is a few knives here. Got the butterfly knife here. It opens from the middle of the handle. I'll show you that in a second. I got a few throwing knives here. I got a Leatherman tool. These knives, not super great at a self-defense scenario. They each have their own novelty or utility purposes. So throwing knives. If you're ever going to have a throwing knife as a self-defense tool, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you don't treat them as a throwing object. You don't want to throw away your weapon. If you have this little knife, you're going to use it in a melee fashion. Don't throw it, because you get rid of your weapon. And not only that, if you manage not to hit them, you're also arming them, because the knife will be closer to them. So you're arming your enemy and you're disarming yourself. Don't do that. And there's different size knives here. I think that's a pretty big one here. So just keep that in mind if you're getting stuff like this. Typically they're stainless steel construction, hard to sharpen, but they're pretty solid. So butterfly knives. Now these things are flashy. The purpose for these is to look cool. Every kid wants to own these and be able to learn how to do it. Just like that. Don't know if you caught me, camera guy. I might be a little too quick. But it's flashy, but not very practical. It's very loud, and when you look at a butterfly knife's construction, these little hinges are all that holds the handle to the blade. Not very strong. Typically, they're a little bit beefier than some stuff, but not the best thing. If you ever needed to rank on something, pretty tough on this, it would probably break. These are flashy, they're novelty, they're for fun. Don't get a butterfly knife for self-defense, unless it's your only option. a knife is it better than nothing. So moving away from novelty to getting to kind of a utility knife. This is a Leatherman here. Now, a Leatherman is not necessarily a knife, but every Leatherman pretty much has a knife in the tool. So, it's a little knife. It's kind of nice, but it's a tool. It's not specifically a knife. So when you think about something like this, you got to think about, in a self-defense situation, do I want this? No, you do not. And here's why. You have this on your belt. Someone comes up in a threatening manner. You have to undo the Velcro, pull the Leatherman out, open the Leatherman, flip up the knife, and close the knife, and you're ready to go. That takes way too long. By then, the person who intends to do you harm realizes you're pulling out a weapon and is on you by then. So in a self-defense situation, definitely don't use a Leatherman. This is a tool for work, because it has other tools as well, pliers and that such thing. So it's a cutting tool. Don't use it as a self-defense scenario, and you will do just fine. Now I just wanted to throw in another thing for self-defense that is not knife related, but it works just as well. And I'll also touch up on other things as well that I don't even have, but we will talk about them. This is a old nightstick. Policemen used to carry these before they carried the foldable batons. This thing is pretty hefty. It's really, really sturdy and a lot heavier than I would have thought. If you get hit by this, you're going to feel it. And it's very, 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 very simple. You just have to hit somebody with it. You don't have to worry about cutting somebody and opening up a knife. So it's a very, very, very simple tool. Just as much as a bat is. A bat, which almost every household probably has. A bat would probably just, if not more, effective. This is just a little bit more compact. And typically you go to a tactical store to get these. But these are very effective. So, and I will wrap up this video with some information, and we will talk about safety with knives. And I also talk about what I feel you should look for yourselves in purchasing your own knife. So guys, that is kind of my advice on purchasing, looking for knives for self-defense, home defense, or even utility, any sort of jobs you may need a knife for. And know the differences in knives, know what they're made for, know their durability, know as much as you can. Do your research before you get a knife. So, you know, definitely look into fixed blades and the folding knives. And I will say quality over quantity. Don't have a bajillion cheap knives, have some good quality knives. And when you're looking for a knife, especially in a self-defense situation, ask yourself, what are you looking for? And I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for durability, I'm looking for accessibility, and I'm also looking for practicality. So, durability, something that's going to last, not going to break on you, nothing cheap. Accessibility, how fast can you draw it? I keep this just clipped on my pocket, and I can flip it open really quickly. And this sheath doesn't have any sort of retention that I have to thumb open, because you might fumble that. Actually it does, but I only use the pinched retention right there. So all I have to do is pull it out. Quick draw is just as important in a knife as it is in a firearm. So keep that in mind. And practicality. Practicality, don't get a giant knife that is impractical to carry around, impractical to use. because when you get to that point, it becomes a hindrance as opposed to an advantage. So keep that in mind, and also keep in mind safety. Knives are sharp, they are deadly. You can hurt yourselves, just as my cameraman did. You know, it happens. So be careful, carry on, and I will see you guys later.